From Waitara, there was conflict quite a way away at Waireka. What happened there? How did we get there?
Well, my understanding is Waireka was a response to the Crown aggression to enforce the survey for the land at Waitara. Ultimately, that led to the conflict at Te Kohia. But Waireka was a Taranaki Iwi response, which is the coastal iwi just down the road here, to Crown's aggression and occupation of New Plymouth and further north towards Waitara. So Waireka and the building of Kaipopo was a direct response to the Crown's aggression, because Taranaki Iwi had some serious concerns about whether or not the Crown's aggression would flow from New Plymouth here, beyond Waitara, New Plymouth and further on down the coast. So Waireka and the building of Kaipopo was Taranaki Iwi's response to maintain their own authority and to send a clear message to the Crown that they did not wish the Crown to proceed with their aggression from New Plymouth here, further on down the coast.
Was it devastating, Kaipopo, the attack?
For Taranaki Iwi, and actually for Ngāti Ruanui as well, it was devastating, because by that time the iwi in Taranaki was starting to mobilise with a little bit of unity and collaboration. So at Kaipopo also saw a large contingent of Ngāti Ruanui from the south come up to support Taranaki Iwi through their whakapapa relationships. And because there was a unified purpose and a real concern that the Crown's aggression and the Crown's policy to extend beyond New Plymouth for land for settler occupation was a real concern for them. So in terms of the effect and the outcome of that particular conflict, it was devastating. Devastating because one of the ariki of the tribe for Taranaki Iwi, Paora Kukutai, perished there. He was shot. And also there were a lot of others, like men called Paratene Te Kōpara. Terei Hanataua, who was a Ngāti Ruanui rangatahi, was also killed. And there were a lot of others that were killed. And there are accounts where they were carrying people back in stretchers from here further south, back into their rohe.
And did the attacks continue?
Absolutely. So the Navy under Captain Craycroft shifted out of Waireka and Kaipopo and then came back into town here. They all loaded up on the government steamer and they continued down the coast and bombed the people as they were carrying their wounded back home.
Let's just actually rewind now to Manawatu Po.
Yeah.
We've spoken briefly with Ruakere about that, but tell us, what was the motivation of that hui at Manawatu Po?
Ultimately, the motivation at Manawatu Po was ki te pupuru te whenua, i raro I te mana o ngā iwi. Prior to that, I think it's important even to understand a little bit of the context of how we get to Manawatu Po as well. New Plymouth here at that time was becoming a very, very important place for the colony. And so in 1840 we have an influx of settler immigration and competition for land. So that ultimately creates real tension around access to land for settler occupation. Our people early on started to recognise the signs of pressure and, well, I'll say greed for land, and so started to have early conversations in 1840, 1843, 44, right up to 1847. It even got to the point where our own iwi Te Ātiawa was looking at selling the mountain. So that kind of level of concern started to really take shape amongst the people and resulted in certain rangatira around here mobilising the people to have a discussion around how they retained land under their own authority and own autonomy. So that led to the establishment of a forum. We call it a forum, or a whare tūranga kōrero, called Patu Tūtahi.
What was the outcome of Manawatu Po?
So the outcome of Manawatu Po was ultimately to retain the land, ki te pupuru te whenua.
How was that going to happen?
So that came about through the commitment to a policy or to a kōrero. That policy was to set out ko te tangata tō mua, ko te whenua tō muri, and that the land would go before, people would die before we would relinquish the land into Pākehā hands. That's quite a well-known account. and so that basically became the policy. Taranaki Iwi came back and set in place some clear boundaries about what lands they were prepared to relinquish. On top of that, Te Ātiawa also came back with some clear statements about where they saw them retaining their own land.
Because by now we had waves and waves of settlers arriving and there were people living on Māori land, right?
Yes. Yeah, there were people trying to get access to Māori land more and more and more. So, that needs to be taken into account. And so our people, as a response, said, e kore mātou e tuku i te whenua ki te hoko. Hei noho anga mō te Pākehā. Whakatūria ngā pau. Ko kurukuru ki runga, ko taipake ki raro. Ka tikina e Te Ātiawa, ka whakatūria tōna pau ko Waitara, ka herea te whenua, ka herea te tangata, ka whakairia te henu tapu ki runga ki ngā whata. He pata ua no te rangi ka oti te hiri ki te whenua, he paua auahi no te whenua ka oti te hiri ki te rangi. So these proclamations and statements and policies were sanctified by clear oaths and agreed to by all those present at Manawatu Po. I think beyond that as well, those iwi that came from outside Mauniwi, Ngāti Raukawa, for instance, under Mātene Te Whiwhi and Tamiana Te Rauparaha, also came with the intention to set in place a clear, organised and unified statement to retain the land.
And those rangatira and those thousands of people that came to Manawatu Po to come together, in today's term, how big and significant would that hui have been?
Well, that would have been a national hui, something akin to thousands and thousands of people and community leaders, regional leaders coming together to organise themselves and agree on a policy to withhold the land.
So Māori from those hapu, iwi and whānau would have known that this decision was a final decision. There would have been no confusion.
There was no confusion, right up to the extent that, as I said, the oaths were anointed by a commitment to the atua. Ka whakairia te henu tapu ki runga ki ngā whata. So there was a formal anointing process to confirm those oaths. And I even heard kōrero as a young fella to say that there was a tapu put on the land, and that tapu wasn't. That tapu was released upon the land in the 1940s and 50s by the old people. So everybody knew, and there was no confusion about the fact that there was a policy put in place by all of those leaders, especially in Taranaki, to retain and withhold the land under their own authority and their own mana to make decisions.
So after making that decision, putting a tapu on the land, putting the po in, the leaders, would they have approached the governors of the day?
I think there were clear messages. My understanding is that there were clear messages sent to those government officials of the time. And they came in the form of ko kurukuru ki runga, ko taipake ki raro. We've set our boundaries in place at Kurukuru, just here, just beyond New Plymouth here, and taipake down in the south. Ka tapu te whenua.
And did they
E kore riro ki te hoko.
Did they listen?
Well, we all know the outcome of whether or not and how far they listened. But there are definitely statements coming out from government officials at the time that said they will not purchase land that's under dispute.
Therefore, Māori around Waitara made a point of, pulling out survey pegs and things like that to show that the land was in dispute. Was that right? Was there any other examples that you can think of?
Well, I think those that involved at Manawatu Po, those that involved at Kurukuru here, those that were involved in Patu Tūtahi also actively asserted that policy to the extent that led to internal conflict also, whereby some of our own people were killed trying to sell the land that was agreed by the leaders of the time would not be sold.
So that kōrero, that policy that had been agreed upon at Manawatu Po was enforced, and to the extent of death.
Yes.
That's how serious it was.
Yeah, there were definitely instances here in the North Taranaki where that policy was informed and led to the death of people like Rawiri Waiowa, who tried to sell the land beyond the point that was agreed would be defined for European occupation.
I wonder if you can talk us into the first shots of the Waitara War then. So from the proclamations, from the understanding of iwi, from approaching the government of the day to let them know, what happened next?
So yeah, I think the proclamation or the statements that were coming out of the governor like Gore Brown and McLean at the time, and certainly also Governor Gray, were setting out that they would not purchase land that was undisputed, knowing full well that Māori land was held in customary title and amongst the broader iwi group. I think that created a lot of consternation and a lot of conflict internally between each other, and we've seen the outcome of that through the death of Rawiri Waioa. That also ultimately led to Te Teira Manuka and those of his family asserting that they had rights, exclusive rights over a particular piece of land without recognising the fact that Wiramukingi Te Rangitake also had rights and collective rights also, and he represented collective rights in Waitara.
So the governor of the day talks about not engaging in land that was under conflict, yet here's Te Teira, Rangitake and the rest of Waitara iwi having conflict over a piece of land.
Yeah, so he contradicted his own statements, his own policy that ultimately led to internal conflict. We believe that was actually a policy or a strategy to create internal conflict between the people.
How did the engagement of war begin?
The engagement of war began when the governor deployed the imperial troops, the Queen's Army, into Waitara to enforce the survey of the Pika Pika block. Te Rangitake immediately responded by establishing Te Kohea.
But didn't engage in war? Didn't fire the first shots?
No, the first shots were not fired by Te Rangitake. He merely established a place to defend. He established a position, and the government fired the first shots with the cannons.
What do you think the legacy of that phase of the first war of Taranaki has been on your people?
I think it's been devastating. There's a process whereby we've been labelled as rebels, and we all know the outcome of that in terms of the confiscations. The legacy, the ongoing legacy of that was felt throughout the course of Parihaka. That's part of the reason why the Parihaka campaigns began, because of the Te Haraki Waitara and the fact that Waitara was never investigated. I think that's something that went beyond 1860, and that was a legacy that was carried on by the likes of Te Uiti and Tohu, who constantly said, he pine, he nera ka whakawākia, engari ko Waitara, ka rea no kia whakawāhia. In that, if you steal a nail or a pen, you will go to trial. Waitara was never put forward to be considered or reviewed.